this latest style of hair, which is really long at the back and sides, but shaved around the front and middle, right as far back as you can go, is now the main fashion in society. So I'm going to just show you how to accentuate that just by shaving out this main center bald patch. And if you haven't got one, you can just go straight ahead and just use any kind of electric device to start shaving back in to your natural growing hair that's full head of hair, because balding is the new hairy of the of the 2020s, and that's the way fashion's headed. So if you haven't yet shaved out the center, at least horseshoe sort of area of your head, then you still have a chance to catch up. Just get the latest device. I've got this lithium ion shaver from Weil with a whole bunch of attachments I just got shipped in. Not so much for shaving my face or anything like that, but more really to make sure that I continue to keep this bald patch as nice and shiny and centric as possible, so that I can get this all wiry and professor-like to prepare for the 2020s, which are right around the corner. In fact, only a few days away. Happy 20-teens. Hope you enjoyed it. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to put this hairband on just to get the wiry hairs, which I need to keep nice and big and wiry, out of the way so I don't chip away at any of those. And then I'll use a hand razor, safety razor. Voila. So I'll just dip in some hot water. And shave around the outside skirting, around the perimeter. Okay, and when you finish shaving that, just take off the hairband, which you use to sort of protect the wiriness, and then just fluff out the outside edges. And you're ready for 2020 to hit the streets and just go out and pick up some chicks. All right, so this is now the latest. You could go with a little bit of the internal curl over which is the semi comb over, but it's a deliberate curl you put there, just to show that you've got a little bit more of an edge to you when you're walking down the street. You've got that little curl there, like, hey, long back and sides, that's where it's at. Okay, so that's what it looks like in the end when you fluffed it out. You could afford to go a bit longer, like out to about here. Try and get the white man afro happening and fluff that out, and make sure that whole horseshoe is nicely shorn down the center. So before I put even more product in here, I'm gonna have a shower, while making sure to avoid washing my underarms, because body odor is in the 21st century, the 2020s. Okay, so body odor and long black back and sides with a shaved horseshoe down the center. Nobody knows, of course, if it's going to last the entire decade, but experts predicting at least till 2025 this will be in. So if you've got a naturally balding head and you've been shaving around the back and sides, just grow it out, you'll be fine. Okay, if you're receding here and here like I am, shave that middle bit out so it's nice and clear, and it ends up going as an innie as opposed to an outie, which we all used to think was the fashion, but it now looks so old-fashioned, doesn't it, to have hair actually growing down here over the forehead and everything. So yeah, I'll just get a shower, make sure to avoid those armpit dreadlocks, and I'll be back here in a second to speak to you about what to do next. Okay, I had a shower ages ago, well, a couple of hours ago. Hair's dry. You can see I sort of snipped away a bit at the top here, quite buffy here, really buffy out here. So I got this entire hair kit thing, which includes this Weil lithium ion shaver. Came with a little extra trimmer, but Don't need that. Feels a bit plasticky. It's got a weird fall out of your hand kind of weight to it. This thing's clicking in and out like it wants to pop off. They sent me a American power transformer, and I've got one of these, which is so loose. I just don't understand how Americans think that that's a safe design. It doesn't hold things in. Australians use this shape, and generally, oh, if there was a prong there for the earth, that shape. So there's nothing stopping it from going in. Admittedly, it's not like a symmetrical thing that you just, doesn't matter which way you put it in. It's hard in the darkness, or it's really hard. It's really fucking frustrating, in fact. But I find USB actually more frustrating because it's rectangular and it doesn't work the other way around, so you always get it wrong the first time, which is actually the right way. You're doing it correctly, but it's just off by a millimeter. But you think you've got it wrong, and then you gotta flip it and put it in, it goes in correctly, and then go, fuck, which way is it supposed to be, motherfucker? And then you push it in the original way, and it eventually on the 5th time works. I don't know what world these plug makers think we're living in. Just turn on all the lights, you've got bright, perfect visibility, so you're in a display room where the plug is set there with nothing around it to try and get your fingers around it. No problem with cords. There's only one cable for the demonstration purpose when we're making this thing. Click, see? It works. No. Put a tangle of wires with going off everywhere, right? And you have to do it by feel. If you can't get your hand in there and it doesn't magnet into the socket, you failed, all right? You don't want different voltages and shit happening with the same size connector. You know, obviously, it's fucking dangerous. Yeah, there's been a real mess in connectors over the years. Obviously, this is not the latest fashion for the 2020s, those of you who thought, oh, let me write that down. So I'm going to just put this in my hair and glue into position. So this is going to be the 5th week I'll be putting on this thing. Just taking it off for the 2nd time. The other times I've just been lifting the front and gluing it. This Walker Tape Ultra Hold glue really starts to disintegrate when it's mixed with sweat over a period of time. After about a week, just body heat basically ruins it. There is a little bit of front hair. Sorry, that's the back. There are a few little front hairs missing here. So there is quite a bit of plastic showing there, so I've got to be careful with this design. I probably should at this point throw it out, especially since I'm catching up with a guy I haven't seen in 3 years tomorrow, and then a guy I haven't seen in 15 years the day after that. It's Christmas time, so I'm starting to see a lot of people, which is my annual seeing people kind of day. See this little bit of curling happening at the front there? If I can't pull on these hairs and it uncurls, then I know I've got to snip that off because that's excess plastic. Which makes the plastic even more visible. I've spoken to you before about having base without any hairs coming out of it, and why graduation is dangerous for believability. Yeah, so that's why graduation is not a great idea all the time, because if you've got any base, whether it be lace or poly, that's exposed without any hairs coming out of it, it makes the base quite visible. So I've got the fan here, which can stop me from sweating, because it's December, so it's summertime. For everybody in the southern hemisphere of this whole planet, that's the way the world works. I know for those of you in the northern hemisphere, you don't really understand the way the world works. You just think there's a north half of the world, but underneath that, it's just turtles all the way down, isn't it? But I can assure you there is a southern half of the planet. Antarctica is at the South Pole. You might not have heard of the South Pole if you're from the Northern Hemisphere, because you kind of just really, I don't know. Every time I hear from somebody from the Northern Hemisphere, they don't seem to understand too much about what's going on in the southern half of the world. But to be honest, I couldn't tell you really anything about Africa. I know that Egypt and maybe Morocco are Arabic kind of countries compared to the more I guess Negroid based countries everywhere else in Africa. Is that about right? I know there have been Dutch settlements, and I think now they're moving into having Chinese settlements as China invades Africa. Buys it off the Africans cheaply. But I couldn't tell you the cultural differences between Nigeria, Sudan, Sierra Leone, and I don't even really know where they all are, except for a basic memory of one time that I sort of tried to look at where the countries are in Africa, and I just couldn't remember them. Ethiopia. I mean, it seems like a lot of poverty in Africa, but I'm sure they've still got major cities and stuff. Like, I mean, Cape Town and stuff. But whenever I think of Africa, if it's not a poor township, it's filled with crime and barbed wire fences and stuff. That's the mentality. I'm just thinking Africa is either crime to the level of murder, like if somebody wants to rob you, they'll just as likely kill you to steal your wallet or car or shoes or whatever else they want. That's my impression of Africa just from media, because I've never been there, except for Egypt, which was, a poor country. I think their main income comes from the Suez Canal when ships have to pass through, because that's really the only way to skip through. I think instead of going around the base of Africa to go all the way around to get into Europe from, I guess, Asia. Oh, that can't be right. To get through the Pacific. Anyway, shipping is still a major way to move stuff around. They don't put cars on planes, for example. They put cars on ships. Yeah, I just can't imagine them taking a gigantic plane full of television sets or anything else either. It's all got to be done through shipping. Okay, so once again, I can't really tell where the invisible line should end at the front. Hopefully I haven't come down too far here. But as always, I'm buttering up the back half first. Then I'll put the hairpiece down on top of that. Got to keep this wet so I can see through the hairs when I put it on my head. So in 15 minutes, or after at least 15 minutes when this glue dries, I'll be sticking this thing back down on my head. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes. I'm gonna remove that. And spray alcohol. Just keyboard cleaner, basically. Around the back perimeter hairs, so I can grab any excess glue that's gone into those back hairs and remove it as best as I can. It's I'd say unavoidable if you really want to reach that back edge completely to get glue in those back hairs. So I've made this part of my gluing regime every time now. Well, the alternative would be to stop the glue about 1mm or 2 short of the back perimeter, which means you've got no hold at the very back. The alternative is potentially get some hairs stuck in back there, which will melt again as well. So I'm not sure which the best of those two solutions would be. If you have any thoughts, please write in the comments. I'm not reading the comments at the moment. I think there are about 500 comments that I've yet to potentially read. But from what I've read from other interviews I've seen with other YouTube channel makers, it can do your head in to read the comments. So hopefully you guys are looking after each other. And if there are some complaints about my videos or whatever, then I'm sorry, but I'm not hearing them anymore. I was getting a little bit too reactive with some of the complaints in the past, so I'll continue to make videos from time to time, but I'm not sure how involved I'll be in answering the comments, just because there are so many nasty comments in the mix, which just aren't necessary. And they're not necessary for me to read either. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to stick this hairpiece back on, which has already got residual glue on it because I got the glue off as best as I could, just using my fingers and rolling it off, but there's always a little bit. I've also got to be careful about curling little areas like that. Just one last look at whether or not I can snip that off with scissors. That area there. That is the very front hairline as well, so it matters. Okay, so obstacles on this hairpiece include the curling bits around the edges, and of course that big hole, which was just from peeling off the glue with my fingers. This is 5 weeks old. There's also that torn area just there. I'm just hoping that the glue will just squeeze it all together. Okay, so this hair isn't completely wet enough really to look through. So from this side, I'm gonna squirt onto the front hairs, which are really gonna be blocking my vision if they're dry. So now they clump together, so there's more area for me to see through into the mirror, into my reflection to get things done. And then now I'm going to spray alcohol onto here and a little bit onto here. Just remember, if you've got too much alcohol, it'll take a lot longer for it to dry. So I've got to make sure the top center, where that tear is, lands in the top center there, without too much overhang or gap. And then make sure there's no gap or overhang around the edges as I apply the temples. And making sure that the front isn't too far back. It seems right there, so it made it all the way, that's good. I'm just pushing the glue down with the brush. And because this is poly instead of lace, there's no way for that alcohol to evaporate quickly out from underneath the unit to escape. It's often a problem here when I apply this that I've left a gap there and there, so it's better to get in early to check it. At the moment it seems okay, no gaps that I can see, but it's hard to see at this point. But brush that in like that, keep it strong. Brush that bit. This is all going to be lifted up at the front for phase 2. And it feels fairly secure, especially considering I didn't put too much alcohol on, so it doesn't take that long now to fix itself and have that evaporation occur to get rid of that excess alcohol. So now I'm just going to pull this back. Hopefully I won't tear off the whole hairpiece. Hopefully it's not too wet. It seems fairly affixed. Back there it's not quite affixed, but we'll see. I think that'll be alright. Okay, now we go to phase 2, which is the second half of this gluing. Make sure there's not a whole bunch of excess glue on the stem of the brush. You can see that's as deep as it goes. That's why I keep complaining about the length of the brush on these Walker Tape Ultra Hold. I can't remember how many ounces this bottle is, but the brush is not long enough to reach the bottom. Looks like there'll be some overhang over there on the left hand side. Is that when that's pressed back down? Hopefully not too much. Being very careful here to not get any glue in those hairs, but I still need to brush all the way to the front edge of the plastic. So it takes a little bit of practice to make sure this corrugation is stretched out of the way, but without accidentally gluing over the edge into the hairs. It all works better, of course, when if I had glued it a little bit lower, so there'd only be like 1 centimeter instead of the 4 centimeters of base that are sticking up now. It would be a lot easier with less corrugation up here if I was able to get it tighter with my measurements in the beginning. But you need to be able to deal with both situations. Otherwise you have to do 3 phases. So the effect is you do the arm like that and you sort of paint backwards just so you can continue to use your favourite hand, unless you're ambidextrous, to get there and do it sort of backwards a little bit. Should get limited visibility. If you really want to miss out on those hairs, you don't want to get glue on the front hairs at all. And I think I successfully did all of that without getting any glue on any hairs. So hopefully in 15 minutes I'll press it down and my hair will be perfect. And because I'm just putting an old hairpiece back on, I won't need to cut my hairpiece. I should be cutting my hair because it's really getting buffy out here now. But I'm not going to do that today, I'll just style it. So I'll see you in 15 minutes. Right, it's been long enough to have dried. Get the hairs out of that for next time. Good for this examination that it's sort of dried around the edges, even though I want to brush it to sort of style it. But to begin with, it's good to see the edges look pretty good, well lined up, not too much overhang, no overhang as I can feel, and no gaps that I could see, so that's good. I'm starting to sweat a bit, I'm just going to turn this on. There's a bit of residual hair and glue in that. We've pulled out those hairs. Yeah, I don't think this will get another go, this hairpiece. This will be the last time. But I'm gonna have to buy some more hair pieces soon. Another triple pack of poly, I think. Even though I said I was getting into French lace, I don't think I really enjoy it as much as this. This is a bit of a dirty area, isn't it? Look along there. See how much dirt there is along there? Given this is the last time I'll ever use this hairpiece, I'm feeling like maybe I should just try to cut that out instead of trying to clean it. See, the glue's on the top, not underneath, it's on the top, so. You know, it's laziness, it's making me want to cut that instead of clean it, right? Didn't quite make it to the edge over on this side. It's dirty there too. Alright, I'll clean it. I just don't want to rip out so many hairs when I do this. You know, I feel like I've almost cleaned the glue that's sitting there and I haven't gotten rid of the glue. I've just cleaned the dirt off the glue that still remains. That's what it feels like's happened. Some glue in there. Not from this time, it's just that this is the 3rd or 4th time I've changed the hairpiece. The same hairpiece. So it's got residual glue from other times I messed up. Now there's a lot of exposed base here from just basically hairs being plucked out over time. I'm just going to put water all over this and get rid of all of that solvent sitting there on the left-hand side of my hair. Bare minimum, I'm diluting it so it doesn't have any sort of strength to creep underneath and start lifting up the hairpiece. So, Muck's still a great product, Muck. I keep talking about Muck all the time. But once it's in, it's not as easy to just kind of style away immediately. So I'm still going to go back to using this stuff. But I'm not going out tonight, so I'm not really styling it. I just want to kind of keep my hair out of my face, not be just dry and wispy. So I'm going to use this stuff, which is just leave-in conditioner. Is this the one I just brought in? Thought I opened another one. It says moisture repair. Oh no, I guess it says leave-in moisture repair. I don't know that it's actually a leave-in conditioner or a styling product of any kind, but it definitely has more hold than air and water. So for now, I'm just going to leave that in there. So this hairpiece will last me another week and a half or so, and then I'll probably have to swap it out. The paranoia will come from this front shiny area where it'll become more visible when it dries. That yeah, the base is exposed with, I mean, it's hard for you to tell now because my actual forehead is probably still shiny as well. So if everything's shiny, it's hard to see, but I mean, I can't even see it in real life. But when it dries, when the hair dries and everything, you'll see that shiny plastic. And when that happens, I'll brush it forward a bit and also put some shine killer on that spot there. And yeah, I guess when I hang out with my friends this week, I might use Muck or some other product. I won't be using whatever this is as a hairstyling product when I go out. But yeah, that's on tight. It's got a nice fresh layer of Hook Tape Ultra Hold. So that'll last a week before the glue starts to deteriorate. The plucking of hairs needs to be avoided. And that's another thing. If you are using clay as a styling product, then the chances are when you run your fingers through your hair, it's going to be ripping out more hairs. So that's another reason to use something which has a bit of a lighter hold to it. Yeah. Now I'm going to go and play Red Dead Redemption 2, so I don't really know what this video is about. I didn't give you any new information, except to say I'm still here, bitches.